The StrutFit Show, bringing retail into the future.
Hello and welcome to the StrutFit Show. I'm your host, Nayyar. I'm also the CEO of StrutFit, where our vision is the same as the vision for this show, to bring retail into the future. Every episode, I'll be joined by a guest who is leading or innovating in some part of the retail spectrum, from design to manufacturing to marketing and even to sales. We'll discuss trends, learnings, and ideas, and really try to figure out what the top performers in your field are doing. Along the way, we'll discover some lessons you can apply to your own career and hopefully even have some fun. All right, let's do it.
Okay, we're live. Hey, Kristl, thanks for joining me on the StrutFit Show.
Yes, hi, Ang. Good to see you.
Good to see you. The purpose of this, the reason we started this podcast was really, I was finding there was lots of innovation happening in the retail space, but it was often happening very siloed. So like there'll be cool stuff happening in marketing, but sales doesn't know anything about it. Or there's cool stuff happening in manufacturing, but then management doesn't know about it. And so we're like, hey, let's have a central place where we can come together and share the best things happening from leaders in the space and try to bring the industry together. So that's the purpose of the podcast. So thank you for joining me here today. It'd be great to start off with telling people what your current role is. And I've stalked your LinkedIn many times now. The journey, the journey for you to get here also looks really interesting. So maybe briefly touch on what you're doing now and how you ended up here.
Sure. So I have been with Brooks for about 6 years now. And for people that don't know, Brooks Running is a high-performance running gear brand selling footwear and apparel to men and women. It is a 110-year-old company. A lot of people don't know that, but it was founded in Philadelphia, but then moved here to Bothell, Washington, and now we're headquartered in Seattle. And we also have a European office, kind of a European headquarters in Amsterdam. It's in the Olympic Stadium that was built in 1928 for the Olympics. So that's kind of a fun fact. And then we became an independent subsidiary of Berkshire Hathaway in 2011. So how I came to be a part of this amazing Brooks company is I actually grew up on a very small island in Hawaii and dreamt about the day that I could, get off and find myself in a bigger place. And I went to the University of Oregon to study filmmaking and journalism, which then brought me to Seattle, Washington to work at a production kind of special effects company, where I started seeing that the future of content was moving to different modalities. So going from traditional film and videotapes, we're moving to CD-ROMs and CD-ROM programming. So kind of seeing the beginnings of the intranet and internet at that time being invented. I actually left and went over to Microsoft to work on an R&D team for MSN.com, which was the early days of the Microsoft network. It was an amazing time. And I look back now at it and go, wow, it's so much easier now than it was back then. So we worked on a interactive music video team. There were different teams creating different content for what was to become the internet. And I say that because people really didn't fully understand what it would be. And our team of about 15 people, developers, editors, graphic designers, producers, musicians, we're all kind of creating it from scratch. And it was a time when Microsoft marketing was even trying to figure out, we need to measure this stuff. Should we use sessions or should we use visits? Or what's a visitor versus a session? Like, all those questions were coming up in the very beginnings of the whole internet play. And we were really lucky to have a very flexible and innovative team at the time. And I recall Bill Gates actually sending our team leader an email saying that the programming that we had been creating with this interactive music video was actually what he believed content in the internet would become. Like, it was so, at the time, cutting edge. So that was fantastic to get that kind of kudos from him. Yeah. Unfortunately, no one can find the email that he sent to us. So that's unfortunate, but I'm sure it's in some chat room somewhere. But anyway, those were fun days. And so I've kind of specialized from there in working in digital transformation type roles at places like Getty Images and the Walt Disney Company, and now at Brooks. So I think the common thread for all of the different positions and roles that I've had has been around the convergence of physical and digital, as well as the kind of convergence of marketing and technology solutions. So I'm lucky to have a pretty varied background in marketing, having worked at different creative agencies and also at Getty Images. And so having that business aspect along with the technology capability understanding has been a really good mix. And that's where I try and take advantage of those strengths to come up with new ideas or hear out people who have new ideas. So that is kind of my background. And right now what I'm doing at Brooks is I am leading what we call digital technology innovation throughout the company, which is a newish practice for Brooks. And I say newish, I've been in the role for about 2 years, 1 foot in marketing and 1 foot in IT. Again, kind of helping those two worlds meet. And yeah, it's been fantastic in trying to spread that kind of innovative culture, to create processes. In other places I've worked, the innovation has kind of always been there, or there were teams centered around innovation, let's say at the Walt Disney Company. So you had Imagineering, kind of working on the whole RFID Magic Band back in the day. And that was a project that I worked on as well. And then also what is now Disney Plus. I worked on the very, very beginnings with the marketing and content team on what was it called? It was called Disney Mobile Movies, where we were like, I bet there's a business model here to actually provide streaming content on demand of all the feature films. And so that was where that one was born. So working on the tech side in supporting that business model was fantastic. And look at how far it's come now. It's amazing. So it's cool. It's again kind of always been on transformation. At Getty Images, I actually also worked on the whole transition from videotapes to creating digital content, all the pictures, all of the video and film, the hundreds of thousands of hours of footage, which I'm sure is now in the millions, but digitizing all that, making it searchable on the web, adding pricing and downloading capabilities. All of that was a very transformative time for, I think, just content in general.
Yeah, wow. It's awesome to see that you were there really from almost the start of digital content, right? And you've been on this journey the entire time.
Yes. Another funny story. So when I was at Microsoft, I was doing marketing promotions for MSN. And I was in charge of their entertainment, science, and entertainment and science programming. And so we had John Lithgow and other famous people, like come chat with John Lithgow at 8 p.m. on MSN on Friday night. And John Lithgow and others like him, they didn't know how to use a computer. Like their managers or their handlers were like having to type stuff in. And back then, adoption was really low. And so I would have to run around the office at Microsoft, turn on people's desktops, and populate these chat rooms with
with people.
with people, synthetic people, deepfake people, I don't know what you want to call it, but yeah, with different names and asking different questions to him and make it look populated and interesting, which it was, but not a lot of users back in that day.
That is funny story.
Huh? I know. Now it's so easy to send a message.
Yeah, now you have Reddit Ask Me Anythings, and you almost pioneered that. I didn't realize, I used MSN Messenger back in the day, and you'd have your long status messages. I didn't realize MSN stands for Microsoft Network. Now I know.
What did you have? What did you think it stood for?
It was just MSN. I don't know. MSN Messenger.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was a fun time.
So now you're at Brooks. You mentioned you kind of sit across the marketing and the innovation team. How big is the immediate team that you work with, and then who else gets involved in digital innovation projects?
So I am a huge team of one right now. And as I mentioned, this is a new process practice for Brooks, and rightly so. They're starting out small and using this as its own test and learn experiment. Prior to this, I was in charge of the digital products team at Brooks. So basically it was the e-commerce websites for North America and also for the different countries in Europe. And that I had about 35 different people working on it in UX and web dev and QA, etc. But after that, I think our leadership just recognized that we needed this innovation component to really be looking forward and ensuring that we had things in the pipeline. Not to say that we didn't, but for digital experiences, it was, I would say, lacking. Footwear innovation, apparel innovation is a whole different story. And those teams have been around for a while. But in the digital experience arena, I think that was fairly new for them. So yeah, with a team of one, I still managed to get stuff done. So I like to think it's either my charisma or my personality or what, but
the experience.
I don't think
you've been ground zero a few times at projects like this.
Well, I think underestimating the ability to influence without authority is probably a big one. So
could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. So I collaborate. I'm a big collaborator across different departments because it takes a team of individuals to get these projects done, right? So I need marketing, I need IT, I need legal's involvement, I need information security to weigh in. So I collaborate across the enterprise, and we align on a problem, we align on a solution, and we get it done. So, even though they may not be reporting to me, these people are all contributing and participating as part of a team to deliver something, whether that's an experiment to test and learn a new business model, or if it's an actual project to integrate a new tool onto our site.
Okay, and on the aligning of the problem, are these problems that the teams come to you with that they have, or what is the process of finding what are problems worth solving, or how do you determine?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'd say over the past 2 years that I've been at Brooks, or I mean, in this innovation role at Brooks, developing that process to identify and execute new idea experimentations, as I mentioned, has in itself been a kind of test and learn endeavor at Brooks. So I've tried multiple ways to kind of crack that nut, doing it from the top down with all of our leadership support. I've done it from the side, getting all my colleagues to generate ideas. And now we're doing it from the bottom up. And all of those different ways have produced pros and cons. Again, taking those learnings and evolving the process has been a big part of some of the results that I'm showing. So I would say that the best way right now that we've found at collecting those new ideas has been through a program we call Innovation Days. And Innovation Days is basically, it's a hackathon, but it lasts for a week and it happens twice a year, once in the summer and once in the winter. Yeah. And it was first started by the IT group, which again, I'm a part of now. And what we do is we ask people to start ideating on a problem and then working as a team. Ask for team members. If you need a UX designer, tap somebody in the UX team. If you need an infrastructure person for something in the cloud, go and tap those guys. So it's, creating a team from scratch and working on a problem together in a short period of time. And what we've seen is that it was a big success, or it is a big success, and now we're ready to expand it. So we're expanding it to our marketing department as well to participate. And, these innovation days just inspires collaboration across different functions as well as within a function. So you get to know your colleagues better. You're basically challenging individuals to think beyond the normal day-to-day job, which is a great motivator for them, at Brooks. And it also strengthens presentation and prototyping skills. So people that normally aren't, on the front lines or doing a lot of presentations, they get that opportunity to do that in front of C-level judges. So that's another big point is I want to include our C-level so that they understand the way the process works as well. They get to meet the team members. It's just a great opportunity to democratize and recognize ideation at any level. And we also gain new solutions to problems, which has been great. Whether it's implemented right away or not, it's, these submissions are fantastic improvements to the way our employees work or to our customer or to our business. Yeah, so we try and encourage the enterprise around these new ideas through this event.
And you do it so often. Like I've heard of some companies doing it for a week, but usually it's like a 2-day hackathon. They do it once a year, but you're doing a full week and you're doing it twice a year. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. I would say the week is not a fully dedicated week. It's a week where you have several hours set aside per day, maybe like 2 hours where you work with your team. So in totality, it may come out to more like a day or two, but there's unplanned things that happen that might deviate your focus.
That's actually good, right? That seems like an easier sell. If you're like, hey, a couple hours a day, they can still do their BAU activities. Did these innovation weeks exist before you started them? You said perhaps they did.
So I was reporting into IT at the time that I had this innovation role, and my manager took our kind of ideation, creation ideas. And when I went over to marketing, she implemented it and
Mm,
started it small. And when I returned to IT, she was like, this is all yours to own and manage and run. And so we've just now, again, it's going to be the third one that we do in the winter in
amazing.
December.
Okay, so you get all these ideas which are generated. I guess it's bottom up and also sideways, and then it's also top down because then the C level are getting involved in the judging. So it's almost an
Yes.
amalgamation of everything. How do you then prioritize what projects to work on? Because I imagine you get a lot more projects than you have time to work on from this.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, during innovation days, we do have, judging. So, and we're going to be expanding those categories so that a disruptive idea doesn't go up against an optimization innovation. So, the way that we like to think about innovation is a new idea to either optimize existing tools and solutions,
Hmm.
or second, it's a tool or technology that exists out in the world, but we haven't incorporated it yet. But it solves a problem, for our customer or for the business. And then the third category would be those disruptive moonshot ideas. And so with those three categories, I think we cover all the bases of innovation. And so the way that we prioritize, well, the ones that win can go into production because one of the criteria for judging is how feasible is it to actually get done,
Mm.
at least for the optimization and the second bucket of technology solutions out in the market. And then the backlog is created with all the other great ideas. So the prioritization really goes through a filter of what's the business value, the customer value, the benefits of this solution for this problem. And then the second is the feasibility. How feasible is it? How extensible is it? Uh, all those things. How can we operationalize it? Do we have the skill set? Do we need partners? All those questions, stuff that we ask.
On the customer value and benefits, are there buckets that you look at, like different types of customer value and benefits, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think, sure, it could be revenue as a benefit. It could be an optimized customer experience. It could be new technology in footwear. So it kind of runs the gamut. Like, yeah, it's not always revenue. It could again be just a way to seamlessly handle the customer journey on the site. It's just case by case.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And on these days, do you get to? I imagine you're working with a lot of customer data in your role. Does
Mm.
that get pulled in, and the feedback is it used?
Yes. Yeah, I would say that customer data or first party data that we get from customers is highly leveraged across the organization and is paramount to support or drive innovation, right? So that data can be used to make improvements to our gear. It can optimize the design and development of the Brooks footwear and apparel. That customer data can also be used to better personalize content that's
Mm.
sent to an individual, ensuring that it will be relevant and it will provide recommendations for gear, coaching advice, what have you, based on what we know about you and the data that you've consented to give us. Also, customer data is being used to improve our ROAS, which is return on ad spend, by really understanding the targeted cohorts that we have within our customer base and increasing the performance effectiveness of our ad spend, making sure that every dollar is being is performing well. So
So we
earlier,
can work out what type of customer that is and make sure that the ads that they're receiving are actually relevant to them.
exactly. So if someone's not a trail runner, maybe we shouldn't be advertising our trail shoes to them, stuff like that, right? That's a kind of an obvious example. But earlier this year, I actually did a internal study on customer data, partnering with our enterprise data and analytics team to basically understand all the different users of our first party data and how they were using it, what value they were getting from these activations. Do we have the right data? Do we need more of it? What data don't we need that we may be collecting, in droves in our cloud? Like, just better having a better understanding, as well as understanding what are the gaps, what are we not doing with the data. So it was a great exercise, and that information is now being used by the enterprise data and analytics team to create their strategy for next year and probably the next few years.
That's amazing. We often see this with retailers we work with, where they have a picture of the customer, but for example, I guess we provide the sizing, and so we actually know customers' foot length and foot width and what sizes they should be wearing, and so we can feed that back in, and it's not quite first party data, but the agreements are all in place that we're able to share the data, and then at the end of a season where customer gets like a personalized email, it's like, hey, instead of here's some products which are on sale, and then you go into them, you spend 20 minutes looking for products and they're not in your size. We can be like, hey, here are products which fit you and are in stock and are in sale, and now you're much more likely to convert. But that, unless you already have done some work to collate all that data and bring it together, it's difficult to pull that off if you haven't already spent some time setting up the architecture, which it sounds like you guys have, and continually improving it as well.
Correct. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, deep learning, machine learning, those types of AI has been helpful with large amounts of data in taking that and using algorithms to be able to do predictive analytics. But yeah, just having the data is the first step. Then knowing what you want to do with it and how, that's where AI is really helpful, and where we're going to start doing even more, I think, in the future.
Could you elaborate on that AI piece and how you use it to see what's useful in data?
Yeah, so AI at Brooks right now, I actually, as I guess the innovation lead, I also run the AI working group, or basically it's an AI governance group. So it's been around for over a year. It has been a great place to get different representatives from different departments of the company, such as HR and legal and footwear and apparel and marketing, yada yada, to come together and share information about different use cases, about what they are doing with AI, generative AI in particular. So, for footwear, it's definitely concept and design brainstorming. For marketing, it's storyboards, mood boards, all that stuff. Finance is using it, e-commerce is using it. So it's been great to learn and understand successes, or where improvements need to be made in these different use cases with AI. We also use that working group, that governance team, to show examples of external companies who have run use cases for other people. We also, of course, allow legal and security to weigh in on these different use cases, and really understand, like, how things are changing, how quickly they are changing, a do's or don'ts best practice we had last week may not apply this week, or how those shifts and changes are affected. So even just tracking the utilization of AI across our company just gives us some centralized oversight.
That sounds really useful, because when these tools started coming out, and I mean, there's a new tool out every week, different individuals will pick it up and just start using it within their work, and it might be really positive, and that's worth sharing, or it might be that actually that they shouldn't be doing that for whatever legal or security reason, and it's worth having that sort of central oversight. So that's great. If companies aren't already doing this, they should do it.
Yes, they definitely should. I think that's probably the first step for companies is to create some sort of governance group to figure out what use cases they want to tackle first. And the ones that people should be tackling first and experimenting on are the high value, low risk ones. Again, just because intellectual property, fair use, like how is the AI tools being trained? I mean, that's all open questions. So doing something that's a low risk is probably where you want to begin. But some of the learnings that we had in the POCs, the proof of concepts that we started working on, I think what's fascinating is one of the most fundamental things that we learned was prompting, asking a tool, the generative AI tool, questions. It's not like searching on Google. And a lot of people that were testing it out were expecting answers that were, I'm putting in a question, it should come back with search results. But in actuality, what we are trying to ask it to do is to create something new. Create something new from the data that it has been trained on and it's pulling in. And so that was a big learning, because a lot of people, expectations was that, this thing isn't working. And it wasn't, it didn't give me the result I expected. Well, I think it was the way that you asked it. That was kind of fascinating. So just one example, I think we asked the POC tool that we created, what does the majority of people that work out in gyms think about a Brooks running shoe for their gym activity or whatever? And it came back with what sounded like marketing script right off of our product detail pages. So it was very much, like the soft cushion of the blah, 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 blah. And everybody thought, well, it's just lifting our content off the web. And I'm like, let me try a different question on that. And so I typed in, what would somebody who works out at a gym say to their friend in a casual manner about their Brooks running shoe when it comes to working out in a gym or something? So getting a little bit more specific and detailed. And it came back with, this shoe is awesome. Like, I don't need to, I don't have to change out from a running shoe to a gym shoe. Like, I can wear it for both. And so it was a lot in the way that you prompted it. So that was fascinating.
It seems like that's where the skill will become. Like, before, when you had people used to draw things, like 200 years ago, before we had photography, people would draw pictures of things, and it was all about your ability to execute and draw. And then the camera came along, and you're like, okay, well, I don't need to draw this building anymore. I can just take photos of it. But now the skill changed from being able to draw, but now it's like, okay, what is the angle? What is the composition of the photo? That becomes a lot more important, and the execution ability doesn't matter so much. And now you come to AI, where before you had to execute doing things manually, generating things manually, And now you still have to do that, but now it's about the skill of being able to prompt the AI and train the AI in the right manner.
Yes.
So-
Yeah. It's fascinating. Data size and storage, we got a lot of learnings about that. Yeah, it how to set it up. It was a great learning opportunity. And now we've moved on to some other POCs.
Where do you see the opportunity? So like there's been a lot of hype about AI and generative AI, and you've used some of it. Is there any potential uses you can see which aren't quite here yet but would be interesting in the future?
Yeah, definitely, innovative emerging technologies are coming out all the time, and even if you've talked to a company last year, even 6 months ago, like so much could have changed since the last time you spoke. They could have added a new feature or evolved it in such a way that it's now more relevant for you and your company. So things are happening so fast, and that's actually what I love about this role, is that it's never the same. And we're constantly challenging ourselves to learn about new technologies. But I will say that new technologies will provide people, as in this running industry or active industry, it'll provide people a deeper and more holistic understanding of themselves. So, giving them more information that they can use to better themselves. The wearables, and of course all the wearable tech's ability to track, monitor, and translate a person's data. Coupled with AI, it'll help to understand trends in how a person moves, when they move, how long they move. It'll help demystify the why should I care about this data that I'm giving you? What does it all mean? What benefits do I actually get out of it? So it's going to help provide that roadmap to navigate and replicate their best run, for example, or their best walk or workout over and over again, making it something that's consistent, not just a fluke. I had a great run last week, but I don't know how to replicate it. Well, we have all this information, and we can help you achieve that again.
That's awesome. I hadn't considered that because, I mean, wearables came out. If you consider the smartwatch as a wearable, which they can track many more things than you previously could, there's all this data, but there wasn't the ability to sift through that data and see what's actually meaningful and salient and present that back in a good way to the user. But now it seems like, cool, you can actually, wearables was this cool new tech, AI is this cool new tech, but you can combine them and provide this really personalized and meaningful experience.
Yes. Yeah, I was at some conference and I was hearing athletes talk about optimizing their performance and how all of these technologies, all of these different wearables are providing so much information on the way that they move. But literally, they said, at the end of the day, you guys need to tell us what this data means because I don't know, right? It's just data to me. It's just my heart rate. It's just, it's just data. So having experts that can turn that around and translate it is essential. And then also going to AR, VR, I think was another area that you may have asked about was, I think AR and VR, augmented reality, virtual reality, for folks that may not know what that is, it can broaden an individual's perspective. I think helping them get beyond the four walls that they might be confined in, whether they're in their apartment or maybe living in their parents' basement, giving them more opportunities to experience different things, and then hopefully creating a demand to run and a desire to walk or be active or go to the gym. That's my hope there.
That's awesome. and when people were locked, perhaps not in their parents' basements, but they were locked in during COVID, we saw this massive return to running, and it looks like that's stuck around.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, what about this? I've been writing a blog post on the top 10 most sustainable footwear brands, and so I've been reading a lot about sustainability. Does sustainability come into your considerations when you're coming up with digital innovations, and are there any projects which you've used to tackle this?
Yeah. So sustainability definitely comes up. I think sustainability and digital innovation need to go hand in hand. One could lead the other, but it cannot solely be considered by itself. So I think in the old days, sustainability was more perceived as a want, which is no longer the case. Obviously, it's a need for our world and humanity and our own well-being. Um, and for Brooks, sustainability concerns are considered alongside legal and security and feasibility risks and rewards, so that it's part of the normal process and being identified early so we can use that information to make the right decisions. Um, so, yeah, we have a whole section on our Brooks commitment to sustainability. That's a part of our website. It's pretty extensive and it is fantastic. We also have started to make shoes. We had a 3D printed insole that we did, a midsole that we did for a shoe called the Exhilarate, where we were also testing and learning with footwear innovation. But yeah, our goal is to, you know, to follow along the lines of the international standards and best practices on sustainability going forward.
Awesome. I just saw something on Instagram about Shine becoming the biggest carbon emitter in fashion. Now they've overtaken H&M and some others.
Yes.
And one third of their emissions were due to shipping and returns, which is such an insane amount. The rest is due to obviously all the junk they're creating.
It's fast fashion, right?
Yeah.
What they call fast fashion.
Yeah, it's not good. What are you doing to reduce returns within Brooks, and is that a concern for you even?
Yes, absolutely. That is a sustainability question. It's a corporate responsibility to make sure that we're eliminating, waste, trying to reduce waste. So at Brooks, there is always a drive to be better in this area, to reduce returns for the customer and for the environment. Our benchmark is actually below the average return rate for retail. So that was good to know, but we can definitely improve upon that. And so we want to understand, why aren't we meeting our customers' expectations? What is it about our footwear or apparel that's creating a particular style of returns? So we want to dig into those questions and discuss it as a team. So we were running, it's still running, but we call it the Returns Action Team at Brooks, which is also a cross-collaborative group of individuals that get together under the acronym RAT, Returns Action Team, but very highly effective in discussing what we're seeing in the data. So we'll bring the data together to understand, is it a particular size? Is it a particular style? Is it a particular fabric? Like what is it about these returns? And we'll hypothesize and we'll start digging into the data even further. But we're really becoming data driven when it comes to reducing returns, which is great.
What are some easy wins you might have seen? Because we started off the business 8 years ago now, and we were like, okay, people aren't getting the right size online. Size charts don't work. People can scan their feet, and we'll get the measurements and tell them exactly what size to get, and we'll reduce returns. We'll make returns zero because of that. And then we released it. We've been live for a while, and as we were in market, we're like, okay, actually, like for barefoot brands, we were getting 20% of their sales were using StrutFit, which is actually super high. Performance brands like Books Running were getting 8 to 10% of their sales using StrutFit or using the specific scanning tool. And then we were like, we kept trying to push this number higher. And then we realized, we're like, actually, how many people are even clicking into the sizing? How many people even think sizing is an issue? And then we looked at the size guide usage along with the StrutFit scanning usage and looked at the total number of people interested in sizing concerns. And it was only like 20 to 30% of people were even clicking into any of the sizing options. And so you have most of your sales not even clicking into sizing. And therefore, if shoes fit differently, for example, and they're like normally a 10 in the Books Running, I'll just get this 10. But the product fits differently, unless that's front and center on the display page and they can see it there without having to click on anything. Unless it's front and center, they won't see it and they'll get the wrong size. So that's something we found. We had some assumptions around how people would use the tool and how many people would use it and what's actually going to make an impactful change. And then, yeah, you look at the data and you're like, okay, now we have to change the strategy a little bit. So have there been instances like that where you had some assumptions on returns and the data made you think a different way?
Yes, absolutely. Well, for one, I think we thought maybe returns were higher than they were. And so when the data came back and it showed that we weren't as high as average retailers, again, it was a good thing, but we still got to work on it. There was a project that I worked on when I first got to Brooks. It was partnering with some other companies like HP and some companies in Europe on a project where we scanned people's feet with a physical scanner. We also took their gait analysis by having them walk and run across a pressure pad to understand where they're putting pressure on the bottoms of their feet. And the goal there was to use data to create a personalized shoe. And that project resulted in a shoe called the Genesis. So it was an experimentation that was done for a couple thousand people around the world. We did it in both North America and in Europe. And it was, like you said, the capturing of the measurements was great. It showed us that, a lot of people have one foot different from the other. Injuries and things like bunions definitely influence the size of your shoe. There was a lot of great learnings from it. And I think, again, we kind of underestimated preference, a person's preference. So do you like a shoe loose, a bigger toe box? Do you like a shoe that's more snug? Maybe something snug around the ankle. So preference with size is, I think, starting in the direction of a good solution. So what you guys are working on is great. And that's good to hear that you're looking at size guides as well, because size guides alone for anybody that is using it is not enough. So scanning, I think, is also a good part of a solution.
The comfort piece is so interesting because we were looking at, and we've known this for a while, because you get two people with the exact same measurements and they're wearing two different shoes or two different sizes in the same shoe, and you're like, well, what's going on here? And so it's the comfort piece. But in store comfort, you can try the shoe on. Online, it's like, how do you elicit comfort? How do you can't, like, we considered asking people whether they like it to fit loose or tight. But it's like, people are just used to what they're used to, and they just think what they're wearing is normal, and they could be wearing the wrong size shoe, and they could be. In fact, I was wearing the wrong size shoe until I switched to barefoot shoes, and I was like, wait, shoes aren't supposed to be like super tight all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So people, do they know that they have a tight fitting shoe on or a loose fitting shoe, or is that just what they've always gotten, and so they don't know any better. Like before I started wearing Brooks, I really disliked running. Like I've been an athlete, tennis player, all that. Running is a big part of, being in shape for those things. And I just would hate it. And until I put a Brooks shoe on, literally it transformed my attitude around running. Like, wow, now I know why people actually enjoy running and going out and running, because it can feel amazing. And you can feel happy running in a shoe that is better than what you were using. So yeah, people's personal preference needs to play a big part of shoe selection when it comes to comfort. So when we think about how to provide that fit, feel, and ride for a runner or a walker or somebody who's just being active, the first thing we think about is, what would the customer think? What if we put ourselves in the customer's shoes, pun intended, gathering feedback and approaching the problem as they would? So what is that customer journey like, and what do they ask themselves when they're going to buy a new shoe? What's that consideration stage? So we think of, what shoe would be good for me, for the kind of activity that I want to do. And then our shoe finder on our website, I don't know if you've ever taken it, but it has been an industry leader when it comes to finding people the right shoe. And so being able to ask somebody, what do you want to use this shoe for? What's motivating you to be active? How much activity and experience level do you have in running? Do you have any injuries? That's where the science and research starts to begin. So in the shoe finder, we have the algorithms in the background that are taking all this information and understanding, everything from assessing your body movement to a couple of questions, understanding what your flexibility level is like, how you want it to feel. All those things get processed, and a recommendation comes out that says, here's the shoes that would be best for you based on what you've told us. And that the finder has been working out fantastically. The size portion is what I think is the continuing area to focus on, which yourself, several others are trying to crack that nut.
Yeah, it's a tough nut to crack, but we think we're there. Your shoe finder is the most comprehensive one I've seen. I've seen quite a few of them, but your one has, you put your hand between your knees and you bend down and you see whether that gives you more pressure or not, to see if your knees come in, and that affects the shoes you wear. But you can only do that as a brand if you have the underlying. Firstly, do you understand what difference that makes to the actual running? And then secondly, do you have shoes which can actually cater for the different types of running that people have? And I think it really speaks to Brooks' science-backed development of their shoes, that you can actually work out what their run signatures are, and then actually give them shoes which accommodate that, instead of trying to change the way they run.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I love that you use the term run signature, because years ago, when this run signature philosophy was developed by our research team, it was an understanding that every person's body movement is unique to them. So rather than trying to change a person's run to be more like a cohort, let's take the individual into account and what that person's movement is like, and just provide them gear that moves with them rather than trying to correct them. So yeah, we've worked with, our lab is quite extensive, and we've worked with other organizations to understand and do a lot of research around, unique shapes and strengths and experiences of people that are using running shoes. The physiology and biomechanics are extremely important, and so that's being studied all the time. Our wear testing team are taking all that data, speaking again of first party data, but understanding how someone is doing while they're on the run or after they've run a certain amount of miles, asking all kinds of questions to just better understand what was that fit, feel, and ride like for you in this particular shoe.
For my last question, you've used the term fit, feel, and ride. What precisely do those things mean for you?
So our footwear team, these are the areas and goals, the aspirations for a person's kind of best fitting, loving their shoes, is that it has to provide you the best fit, feel, and ride. So that goes into comfort. It goes into kind of how does that make you feel, as well as your foot, right? If you have a distraction that your shoe is too tight, or something's rubbing, your heel or whatever, you're not going to have the best run. So the fit, feel, and ride of our gear is extremely important, and that's what we're trying to achieve.
True.
With
And
our
I guess
products.
it looks at it from the whole, because the shoe can fit okay and it can feel okay, but when you go for a run, it actually doesn't ride good.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've hit it spot on. It takes all those things into account. Yeah, walking around. If your intent is to run, whether that's just a couple miles a week or getting ready for a marathon, like your shoe has to feel, fit, and ride well on the run, and that's why our return policy. We have a 90-day return policy because we want you to go out and use the shoe in the way that you want your goals to be. So if you're wanting to walk so many miles or run so many miles, take it out, use it, see how you like it. Did it meet your expectations? They have to be satisfied with our product. That's the goal.
90 days is such a long returns window.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
cool.
Of course, there's been many discussions about, is it too long? Is, all those things. But again, we want people to have a good ride. So you have to run in it or walk in it or go to the gym in it or whatever.
I think it speaks to the confidence of the brand and the confidence that you have in your footwear, that you're like, you know what, you can have 90 days, that's fine. We're confident you're going to enjoy it by the end of it. And if not, come back and we'll sort you out. Because I guess once you have that customer, once they've run in a Brooks running shoe, you probably have them for life.
Yeah. Our loyalty program is a big part of it. Understanding a customer's lifetime value, engaging with them on a regular basis. That's all stuff that we feel is important in ensuring that they stay a Brooks customer.
Awesome. Well, I've got many more questions, but we've come up to the end of our hour. This has been an awesome conversation. I think people listening to this will have learned, if they're just starting out in digital innovation, how to, you can start with a team of just one, and there's ways to get other team members involved. Even if you don't have authority over them, you can collaborate with them.
Yes.
Some tangible ways of how they can do that and then scale things. And then your thoughts on the latest emerging tech. So this has been a wonderful conversation. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, thanks, Ang. Happy to be a part of it.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of The StrutFit Show. I've been your host, Ang Nayyar. And if you enjoyed it, if you found some parts where you were like, this has added some value to my life, then please share it with a few other people that you think would also value this information or that snippet. And when they like it as much as you did, I'm sure they'll thank you. If you're interested in what we're doing at StrutFit, head to our website at www.strut.fit to learn more and get in touch with us. If you want to get in contact with me directly, you can reach me at ang@strut.fit. Alright, that's all folks. Till next time, take care.